All right, so you know how we love diving into these big ideas, trying to crack the code on things everyone wants to figure out?
Right.
And honestly, who doesn't want to figure out how to build wealth?
It's the dream, right?
Totally. And today feels a little like cheating because we've got basically a shortcut laid out for us.
How so?
Well, we're tackling this Mark Tilbury video right after I read 40 books on money, he calls it. And he breaks down all these wealth building books,
Ambitious.
super ambitious, 40 books condensed down. And I gotta say, it's kind of brilliant.
Yeah, cutting through all the noise to the good stuff.
Exactly. So that's our mission today, extracting those golden nuggets from those 40 books.
Sounds like a challenge,
Eh,
but I'm up for it.
eh.
Where do we even begin with 40 books worth of advice?
Well, Tilbury, he breaks it down into these levels, starting with getting to that first 100,000 and then scaling up from there.
Makes sense. You got to have a solid foundation before you start building skyscrapers.
Exactly. And what I find really interesting is that the initial stage, it's not about stock picks or business plans or anything like that.
It's all about mindset.
Really?
Yeah, that internal game, that's where it all begins.
So we're talking about those deep-seated beliefs we have about money that might be holding us back without us even realizing it.
Absolutely. Like those invisible scripts we've picked up along the way.
So are we going full The Secret on this manifesting wealth with good vibes only, or what?
Not quite. It's more about recognizing and dismantling those limiting beliefs. Secrets of the Millionaire Mind really dives into this.
Okay, so give me an example. What kind of limiting beliefs are we talking about here?
Well, think about the phrase, money is the root of all evil. The common saying, right?
Yeah, I've definitely heard that one.
But if you grew up hearing that even subconsciously, it can create a block around building a healthy relationship with money.
It's like we're self-sabotaging before we even start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where understanding the psychology of money comes in,
And I see Tilbury had that book on his list too, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel.
right? And it's not just about being rich. It's about understanding the difference between rich and wealthy. You could be earning a high income, but spending it all on liabilities.
It's that whole live below your means philosophy that so many financially successful people seem to follow.
Exactly. True wealth is about building a solid financial foundation, making smart decisions for the long haul.
But let's be real, shifting your mindset, especially when it comes to something as emotionally charged as money, it's tough. Where do you even begin?
It starts with awareness and then consciously choosing to think differently. That's where the magic of thinking big comes in. It encourages you to expand your financial aspirations.
So instead of saying, I could never afford that, you start asking yourself, how can I make that happen?
Precisely.
Hmm,
You got to dare to dream bigger, open yourself up to new possibilities.
I love that. But even with a positive mindset, actually taking those first steps can be daunting. What comes next in Tilbury's breakdown after we've tackled those internal roadblocks?
Well, it's time to stop thinking and start doing.
So no more visualizing our dream lives, it's time to actually build them.
Well, not quite. We're not talking about quitting your job tomorrow and becoming a day trader.
Okay, good, because I haven't quite figured out those candlestick charts yet.
They're tricky. This stage building towards that first 100,000 is all about establishing the right habits and systems.
Systems, okay, that sounds a little intense. Like, do I need a spreadsheet for every aspect of my life now?
Think of it more like designing your life to support your financial goals.
Hmm.
We're talking about small, consistent actions rather than relying on willpower or motivation.
No, okay, because we all know how long that lasts.
Exactly. And that's where habits come in. Tilbury talks a lot about this in the context of atomic habits. Have you read that one?
I have. It's all about how those small changes you barely notice can snowball into huge results, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not about making some radical overnight transformation, but focusing on one tiny positive habit at a time.
Like, what kind of habits are we talking about here? Give me an example.
Okay, let's say you start your day with a cup of coffee,
Who does?
right? So while that coffee's brewing, you could stack on a new habit like reading for 15 minutes.
Okay, so you're not just a coffee drinker, you're a coffee drinking reader now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And over time, that reading adds up. Maybe you learn something new that helps you in your career or sparks a great business idea.
I love that. It's like sneaking in a bit of self-improvement before the day even really gets started.
Precisely. And that consistency, it spills over into other areas of your life too, including your finances.
So we're talking about those little things like automating your savings or investing a small amount each month.
Exactly. Those small actions taken consistently over time, they make a huge difference in the long run.
It's like that saying, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. If you can be consistent with the small stuff, it builds that muscle for tackling the bigger challenges.
Right. And that consistency is especially important when it comes to things like saving and investing.
So it's not just about forming good habits. It's about aligning those habits with our long-term goals, right?
You got it. And Tilbury talks about this in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Specifically, the habit of beginning with the end in mind.
Okay, that's a classic for a reason. But what does that actually look like in practice?
It means asking yourself, where do I want to be financially in 5, 10, 20 years? Once you have that clear vision, you can start reverse engineering your way back, making sure your daily actions are aligned with those goals.
Okay, so having a clear picture of the future helps us make smarter decisions in the present.
Exactly.
Okay, but let's be real, even with a clear vision and good intentions, procrastination can still be a major roadblock.
Oh, absolutely. We've all been there.
I know I have.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, putting out fires, scrolling through social media. Next thing you know, the day's gone, and you haven't made any progress on your big goals.
That's why systems are so important. And Tilbury highlights another book here that offers a great system for combating procrastination, the 12-week year.
Okay, so instead of thinking about the entire year stretching out ahead of us, which can feel overwhelming, we break it down into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Exactly 12 weeks at a time. And you set ambitious but achievable goals for each 12-week period.
I love that. It's like creating a series of mini deadlines to keep you on track.
Exactly. And that sense of urgency, it can be incredibly motivating.
Okay, but even if we're super disciplined and productive, how do we even know what to focus on? With technology changing so rapidly, AI, the whole gig economy thing, it feels like the rules of the game are constantly in flux.
That's a great point. And it's something Tilbury addresses directly. He actually challenges the traditional career advice of follow your passion.
Really?
He says passion is important, but it's often the result of mastery, not the starting point.
So you're saying instead of trying to find that one true calling, we should focus on becoming really good at something, anything, and then let the passion develop organically.
Exactly. And that mastery often comes from hard work, dedication, a willingness to embrace discomfort.
It reminds me of a quote I heard once: don't follow your passions, follow your competencies, and build your passions upon those competencies. It seems like a much more practical approach, especially in today's world.
And that's where Tilbury's insights from so good they can't ignore you and the unfair advantage come in. He says we need to identify our unique strengths, those natural abilities that make us stand out, and then hone those skills to the point where they become almost impossible to automate or outsource.
Because those are the skills that are going to be valuable in any economy, regardless of what technological disruptions come our way.
Precisely.
Okay, but how do we figure out what those unique strengths are? Sometimes it feels like we're so caught up in the day-to-day that we don't even know where to begin.
Tilbury suggests a bit of self-reflection. Look back on your life. What activities have you always excelled at? What comes naturally to you that others seem to struggle with?
That's a great point. Sometimes our greatest strengths are the things we don't even think about because they just feel so effortless.
Exactly. And once you identify those strengths, you can start looking for ways to leverage them in a way that generates income.
So it's not necessarily about reinventing the wheel, but rather finding a way to spin those existing skills and passions in a new and profitable direction.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the mindset, we're building solid habits, and we're honing those unique skills that set us apart. What's the next piece of the puzzle as we start to build real lasting wealth?
Okay, so we've laid a lot of groundwork here. We've talked about the importance of mindset, building solid habits, honing those unique skills that set us apart. But how do we actually translate all of that into cold, hard cash? How do we make that leap from earning an income to building real, lasting wealth?
That's where understanding the fundamentals of personal finance comes in. And one of the most foundational concepts is the difference between assets and liabilities. Okay, assets and liabilities. I feel like I hear those terms thrown around a lot, but a little refresher never hurts.
Absolutely. In the simplest terms, an asset puts money in your pocket while a liability takes money out.
Okay, so give me some examples. What are we talking about here?
Sure. Think of an asset as something that works for you even while you sleep.
Okay, so like a rental property that generates passive income or investments that grow over time.
Exactly. Those are prime examples of assets. They're putting money in your pocket without you having to trade your time for it.
Okay, and then liabilities, those are things like debt that cost us money.
Right. Or even that new car with the hefty monthly payment. That's a liability too. It's taking money out of your pocket each month.
Okay, that makes sense. So the goal is to acquire more assets and minimize those liabilities. But once you've got some money saved up, how do you actually put it to work to build real wealth?
That's where the magic of investing comes in. And when it comes to investing, one of the most powerful forces on your side is compound interest.
Compound interest. I know. I know. It's like the eighth wonder of the world or something.
It really is that powerful, Con.
Yeah.
Tilbury illustrates this beautifully with an analogy from the compound effect. Would you rather have $3 million today or a single penny that doubles in value every day for 31 days?
A penny that doubles. That's tempting. But I'm going to go with the $3 million up front.
That's what most people would choose. But here's the thing. That single penny, through the power of compounding, would turn into over $10 million in just 1 month.
Wait, really? That seems impossible.
It seems counterintuitive, but that's the power of compound interest. Starting small and letting your investments grow over the long term is incredibly powerful.
Okay, that's mind-blowing. But I have to admit, the world of investing can feel incredibly intimidating. There are so many options, so much jargon, and let's be honest, it can feel a bit like gambling sometimes. What's a good starting point for someone who's new to all of this?
Kilbury's a huge advocate for index fund investing. It's a strategy that's championed in the Little Book of Common Sense Investing. Instead of trying to time the market or pick individual stocks, which can be risky, index funds allow you to essentially own a tiny piece of the entire stock market.
So you're spreading your risk and betting on the overall growth of the market rather than putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And the best part is, index funds are generally very low cost and easy to manage. It's a great way to dip your toes into the world of investing without getting overwhelmed.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But even when you have a solid investment strategy, it's still easy to get caught up in the emotional roller coaster of the market. Watching your investments go up and down and feeling like your hard-earned money is just disappearing into thin air.
Absolutely. And that's why Tilbury emphasizes the importance of approaching investing with a long-term mindset. Don't panic when the market inevitably takes a dip.
Easier said than done, right?
It definitely takes practice. And that's why Tilbury highlights The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. It's classic for a reason. He introduces this idea of Mr. Market, this imaginary character who's always offering to buy or sell stocks based on his often irrational emotions.
So it's like a reminder that the market doesn't always reflect the true value of a company or asset.
Exactly. Don't let Mr. Market's mood swings dictate your investment decisions.
Okay, that's a good way to think about it. Don't let your emotions get the best of you.
Right. And while we're on the topic of emotional investing, Tilbury shares another great insight from One Up on Wall Street. He says, if you love the store, chances are you'll love the stock.
Meaning sometimes our everyday experiences as consumers can give us valuable insights into the potential of a company.
Exactly. Like if you're constantly raving about a certain product or service, that might be a good indication that the company behind it is onto something special.
It's like that saying, invest in what you know.
Exactly. But investing, even when done wisely, is just one piece of the puzzle. The ultimate goal, as Kilbury outlines in his analysis of the cash flow quadrant, is to transition from being someone who simply works for money to someone who builds systems that generate wealth even when you're not actively working.
So moving from trading time for money to creating streams of passive income, essentially.
You got it. He's talking about building businesses or investments that generate income without requiring your constant attention. Think rental properties, dividends from stocks, royalties from a book you wrote, online businesses that run on autopilot. The possibilities are endless.
Okay, that sounds amazing. But how do you even begin to build those kinds of systems? It feels like that's a whole other level of entrepreneurship and financial savvy.
It definitely takes effort, but it's more attainable than you might think. Tilbury highlights a book called The 4-Hour Workweek. It breaks down this idea of designing your life around your ideal income and time freedom. The author emphasizes the importance of relative income. It's not just about how much you make, but how much you work for that income.
It's about leveraging your time and resources to create a life where your money works for you, not the other way around. But how do you find those opportunities? Where do these wealth-building ideas come from?
That's where things get really exciting. Tilbury talks about this in his analysis of 0 to 1, which encourages entrepreneurs to bet on a contrarian truth, to find a problem that people are experiencing and then create a solution that no one else is offering.
So it's about seeing an opportunity where others only see obstacles. It makes me think of companies like Airbnb. The idea of renting out your spare room to strangers seemed crazy at the time, but they tapped into a need that no one else was addressing.
Exactly. Or think about Netflix. They disrupted the entire entertainment industry by betting on the future of streaming when everyone else was still focused on DVDs. These companies were all built on ideas that seemed counterintuitive at the time, but they were able to tap into a need that wasn't being met.
So how do we get better at spotting these contrarian truths, these opportunities hiding in plain sight?
It starts with curiosity and a willingness to look at the world differently. Tilbury actually shares a great exercise from the book Disrupt You. He suggests writing down 3 things that annoy you every day.
Okay, so like what? My internet's too slow. My phone's always dying. I can never find my keys.
Exactly. Those annoyances, those little frictions in your daily life could be the seeds of innovative solutions.
That's such a simple yet powerful idea. So often the best business ideas come from solving a problem that we've personally experienced. But once we have an idea, how do we make sure we actually take action and bring it to life?
That's where execution comes in. Tilbury highlights the principles outlined in the Lean Startup, which emphasizes the importance of testing your assumptions quickly and iterating based on feedback. Don't be afraid to launch a product or service that's not perfect.
Yeah.
Get it out there, get feedback, and then improve it.
It's about being agile and adaptable rather than waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect product and finding a market where your idea can truly thrive, right? I remember Tilbury talking about the importance of blue ocean strategy.
Absolutely. It's about creating your own category, your own blue ocean, rather than competing in a crowded red ocean where it's a race to the bottom on price. Tilbury also highlights a book called Oversubscribed, which talks about the power of scarcity to drive demand.
So how do you create scarcity in a world where it seems like there's an abundance of everything?
It's about positioning and marketing. Tilbury uses the example of Ferrari. They intentionally limit their production to create a sense of exclusivity and desirability.
It's such a counterintuitive concept, but it makes sense. The more scarce something is, the more desirable it becomes. Wow, we've covered so much ground here. From the importance of mindset and habits to the nuts and bolts of investing entrepreneurship, even a bit of marketing psychology. Is there anything else we need to know as we set out on this wealth building journey?
There's always more to learn, but the most important thing is to take action. Pick one strategy, one book, one idea that resonated with you today and start implementing it. Knowledge without action is useless.
I love that. It's a great reminder that even small steps taken consistently over time can lead to incredible results. This has been an incredible deep dive. Thank you so much for taking us on this journey through 40 books on wealth building. It's definitely given us a lot to think about.
My pleasure. Remember, the journey to financial freedom starts with a single step. What will yours be?